Meanwhile, rolling on global climate change as we pass tipping point after tipping point. We did a video on this, which you can see at lasthours.org, about the methane tipping point, the methane cloth rates in the ocean. And Guy McPherson has been writing about this and these sorts of issues for quite some time. It seems like since 2006 anyway. And is doing a bit of a speaking tour right now. He's got a new book out. He's a professor emeritus of natural resources and ecology and evolutionary biology at the University of Arizona. He's a contributor to what I find one of the most interesting blogs on climate change. It is arctic-news.blogspot.com. And his website is Guy McPherson, McPherson.com. Guy, welcome to the or Dr. McPherson, welcome to the program.
Thanks, Tom. I appreciate the opportunity.
Thanks for joining us.
Call me Guy.
Okay. Guy, you, in several recent speeches, have suggested that we have passed so many tipping points on the road toward irreversible global climate change that it has now, that we're now in a state of irreversible global climate change that's going to bite us in the butt, presumably within the lifetime of people alive today. Can you tell us about that?
Yes, I think that's right. And at Nature Bats Last, my own website, I simply collate, synthesize, integrate, and summarize the information put out by other scientists. I left active service at the University of Arizona about 5 years ago, and so I haven't had the infrastructure and especially the funding to do primary science since then. So since I left, I have been connecting the dots and putting together the information put out by other people. That information includes, at this point, 31 self-reinforcing feedback loops, 29 of which appear to be irreversible at temporal spans relevant to the human experience. And the hits keep coming. We're up to 19 as recently as last August when I presented in Amsterdam, and now we're at 31. So there's no slowing this ship down.
And these self-reinforcing feedback loops include things like what?
Like methane hydrates bubbling out of the Arctic Ocean. That was the first one reported in the refereed journal literature, reported in Science in March 2010. And that's a self-reinforcing feedback loop because as the methane bubbles out, the atmosphere gets warmer because methane is such a strong greenhouse gas. And as it gets warmer, it causes the methane to bubble out even faster. Mm-hmm. And so other examples include the melting of the Arctic ice, for example. The ice serves as a profound a source of reflectance or albedo, and you remove that ice and suddenly the energy is going into the dark ocean instead of being reflected out by the white ice. So we have warm Atlantic water, we have methane coming out of the Arctic Ocean, we have methane coming out of the Siberian region, and in fact throughout the world's boreal forests at this point as permafrost gets transformed into permamelt. We have peat in the world's boreal forest decomposing at an astonishing rate, contributing to warming and drying, therefore accelerating the decomposition of that peat, and so on.
Releasing methane and carbon dioxide.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So and those are the big two. There's several other greenhouse gases, and if we put them all together, we're at about 480 parts per million equivalent of CO2. Right now in the atmosphere. And of course, before the beginning of the Industrial Revolution, we were at about 280 parts per million carbon dioxide in the atmosphere and less than 700 parts per billion methane. So the equivalent was considerably less than 300 parts per million.
What is this
CO2 equivalent?
What does this mean for our children?
We are experiencing a warmed and warming planet. It's difficult for me to imagine there will be habitat for human beings in the not too distant future. Consider, for example, that methane leaking out of the Arctic Ocean or bubbling out of the Arctic Ocean. That one feedback alone contributes so greatly to planetary warming that incorporating just that single feedback indicates that it can be as warm as 10°C warmer than baseline by 2040. And we've never had humans on a planet more than 3.5°C above baseline.
So you're predicting the end of humanity?
Yes.
So
and we're taking a lot of other species down with us.
Within the lifetime of our children, and maybe even you and me, should we live that long?
Yes. Yes,
so,
I had every ambition of living until 2030 or 2040.
Yeah.
In fact, most people don't leave their academic university jobs until they're about 70.
Right.
I'll be 70 in 2030. I'm pretty sure there won't be habitat for humans where I live at that point.
So what do we do about this?
I frequently give relatively little advice about what we can do because it appears that so many of those self-reinforcing feedback loops are irreversible at temporal spans relevant to the human experience.
Now, didn't the IPCC just say, you know, we've got a real problem here, and it may be irreversible unless we go to geoengineering?
Yes, in fact, that's exactly what they say in a report leaked from their fifth assessment. A report that, well, here's the exact quote from New Scientist at newscientist.com. Hardly a sky is falling kind of organization. Here's how they open. Global warming is irreversible without massive geoengineering of the Earth's chemistry. This stark warning comes from the draft summary of the latest climate assessment by the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change. That's the lead.
Right. Okay. We just have about a minute and a half left, Guy. I'd like to get through this. So we're screwed. I know you've been suggesting that we basically take a kind of Buddhist approach to this. You talked about our being in hospice, and let's talk about quality of life and let's improve things. But you know, that said, I'm sure you're familiar with the famous bet between Paul Ehrlich and Julian Simon back in the 1970s, and how that worked out. Back in 2006, you were suggesting that by 2008, peak oil would be getting us. Could it be that human ingenuity can get us out of this, the way Julian Simon predicted?
It could be, though it would surprise me because it seems to me that it's human ingenuity that got us into this mess. We keep coming up with technological means to extract wealth, financial wealth, from the planet at tremendous cost.
What do you say to those who try to discredit you by suggesting that in 2006 you were arguing that by, you know, within a few years peak oil was going to get us?
I continue to be amazed that the system has held together as long as it has, and that's right. I was incorrect in my assessment of peak oil. In fact, that only made things worse. We've known since 2009, in a paper published in Climatic Change by Tim Garrett, that only complete collapse prevents runaway climate change.
So we should have, when the warnings about peak oil came along, we should have stopped using oil. Guy, I'm sorry, we have hard breaks on the show. The machine has started. But thanks so much. I want to get you back again to talk more about this. Hang on just a second. We're going to get stepped on.
This is the Tom.
This
is the Tom Hartman Program.
Guy McPherson, Nature Bats Last is his blog. Guy, thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you, Tom. I appreciate it.
Great talking with you. We'll be back.